Got your attention. I'm going to call to order the public hearing for the 2024-25 general fund budget. On behalf of the Board of Trustees of Lexington School District 2, I want to welcome you to the public hearing on the 24-25 general fund budget. The board plans to continue to maintain open communication with its citizens, and by doing this, we hope to provide physically responsible programs and services that meet the needs of our students and make the community proud. Notification of the public hearing on the budget was published in the state newspaper on June 5th, 2024. At this time, our superintendent, Dr. Brenda Hafner, will give a brief budget overview for fiscal year 2024-25. Following the overview, we will open the floor for public participation. This evening, the board will listen to your ideas, but does not plan to discuss individual proposals. Any ideas will be accepted as information only. If you would like to address the board, please fill out the card, which you have, and I have, and only LexingtonTwo residents or LexingtonTwo taxpayers will be heard. When you hear your name called, please come forward to the podium and limit your comments to 5 minutes. During your comments, a digital on-screen timer will be displayed, counting down from 5 minutes. An alarm will ring when no time remains. And again, thank you all for being here tonight. I'll turn it over to Dr. Hafner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. During our regular board meeting on May 16th, 2024, we heard our first reading of the proposed budget for the 24-25 school year, and that proposed budget passed the first reading at that time. It was posted on board docs for public review the following day. The notice for tonight's public hearing was posted, as you mentioned, in the state paper on June 5th and on our website June 13th, along with the informational brochure. There have been no changes to the budget since that time, so any questions that anyone would have from the Board of Trustees would come during the regular board meeting time. So I hand it back over to you for public participation.
Okay, and the first person that I'll ask to come to the podium is J.J. Markham.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Board of Trustees. My name is J.J. Markham. I am speaking today as an involved community member, former parent, and educator of LexingtonTwo. I will be brief this time. First, I would like to thank you for giving the speakers your undivided attention as we present. It takes courage for people to stand before a group and speak on things about which they are passionate. Those of you who show us respect by actively listening throughout are much appreciated. I would like to address the recent discussion by this board regarding the upcoming budget at the previous board meeting held May 16, 2024. It was mentioned cutting percentage salary increases for our veteran teachers, those who have taught 15 years or more. Veteran teachers in the trenches, the ones that show up every day, are dedicated, professional, loyal, and care about kids. Teaching as a profession already earns 80% of what other college-educated professions receive, and we are considering decreasing that more. What message does that send to our educators who have committed to and stayed with us through a multitude of changes in students, leadership, and laws? Educating today's children is becoming more difficult, and our veteran teachers are more adept in weathering the storm and helping our new teachers navigate it as well. Please don't get me wrong, our baby teachers are extremely important, but most rely on veteran teachers to help steer them through the miry system that is education, a system that has proven to have daily substantially challenging circumstances. Studies have shown professional growth of our newest teachers does not happen until year 6. This means new teachers must teach 5 full years before they get their legs beneath them. Who is helping them manage student behaviors, come up with behavior plans, manage work time to get it all done, prepare data for admin and leadership, communicate with parents, research and plan lessons, manage the stress of being responsible and accountable for 20 to 200 people per day, assess student ability and progress, manage every other duty assigned that they were not aware of. Most new teachers are inadequately prepared for the hard job that is teaching well. This is why new teachers have buddy teachers assigned to them their first year. But it doesn't end there. The veteran teachers are continuing to step up to help the less experienced because they care about kids and they care about this district. Compensation is one way to reward for a job well done and dedication, much like the outside world. It's no wonder the ER Strategies reported 30% of new teachers, those having taught 0 to 2 years, left the profession after the 2022-2023 year, compared to only 17% of teachers with 9+ years or more experience. This has a cyclical impact as veteran teachers and the district have to continually invest time and money into new teachers without the benefit of them ever getting to that professional growth stage. Teaching is the #1 most burnt-out profession according to Gallup, yet we consistently add more to teachers' plates for nothing but a $200 step increase. Veteran educators have dedicated their lives to this work with very little complaining, and now we are discussing eliminating the salary percentage increase that they have been receiving and plan their budgets around for their families and futures. Other professions are compensated appropriately for experience, and teachers should receive nothing less. I would ask that you please and always consider our greatest resources, our people, when planning and voting on the finances of our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Markham. All right, next is Brian Habing.
Hi, I'm Brian Habing. I'm a West Columbia resident and a proud father of a LexingtonTwo student. One comment I had was on the proposal to not give the percent raise to those beyond a certain number of years. As a going on 27-year state employee, there have been a few years where my more senior colleagues, who are some of the hardest workers we have at the university, didn't get raises because the state capped the amount of raise they had at a certain point, which means that people below them who got the raise actually jumped them in salary. I think one of the most demoralizing things is having rank jumping like that. I was grateful to see this year that the state decided to make all of those beyond a certain point get the raise that last year that they gave them to did. So if you got up to a certain salary, you got a percent, and then after that you got that same percent at that point. I believe if we just capped the salaries at 14 years and didn't give the 3%, just the steps, that our current 14-year teachers in this district would then pass the 15-year because the 3% would be more than the step increase that the people they were going up against would have gotten. And I don't think there's anything worse for morale than rank jumping like that. I'd like to point out in defense of all of the teachers that everyone is affected by inflation. Seems like a thing. And there are a few comments made that the more senior teachers had a lot of things to deal with. Said I'm going on 27-year state employee. I know a lot of my younger colleagues are dealing with student loan debt in their families and trying to buy a house that is nothing like I experienced. So I would like to stick up for the younger employees as well, based on some comments from last time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Elizabeth Hook.
I have more time than I thought, so I may go off grid, so that might not be a good thing. But thank you, Dr. Hafner, and for school board for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Elizabeth Hook, and I'm a first grade teacher at Riverbank Elementary. Next month, I will begin my 27th year teaching with nearly 20 right here in Lex2. I've achieved national board certification. I've received my master's degree in educational administration, although I'm called to stay in the classroom. I have achieved things that don't really matter when it comes to sitting on the carpet with my kids. My husband, Jamie Hook, is a graduate of BC High School, as are his parents, his grandparents. I've raised 3 children in this district. Most recently, my son was a Bearcat graduate when he walked across the stage in May. We live and we work and we worship in this community. And I say all that not for personal accolades, not because I want to read off some sort of family resume, but because if that's not evidence that I'm committed to this district and I'm committed to this community and I'm loyal, I don't know what else is. Before last month, I have never felt convicted to speak to you as a collective group, but I wanted to publicly thank you for approving the first reading of the budget presented at the last meeting. All of you know my concerns about the conversation about the budget because I emailed all of you individually. I appreciate those of you who took the time to email me back or to call me back. Those of you that didn't, that's not okay. 3 reasons why I really feel like you need to approve this budget tonight. The first reason is our kids. That's why we're all here. That's why all of these people are here. That's why you're here. We're here for the kids. Funding qualified teachers and quality programs directly impacts our kids. The second reason is our teachers. Vote yes unanimously and show all of us, the first-year teachers and the seasoned teachers, that we're respected and valued and needed. Dispel the inaccurate narrative that was given last month by Mr. Bray. Teachers choose Lexington2 because of the relationships in their schools and in their community and with their school board. The relationship between you, our board, and our teachers matters. Restore what was broken. As a veteran teacher, I know the pillars of this district are the teachers invested in our community. We are the ones teaching student teachers how to be teachers. Many of those choose to stay right here in our schools. This past year, I had 4 teachers who I could call colleagues, who I was actually their mentor teacher at some point over the course of their years. One was a baby teacher. She had just finished, and we get to be together again for a second year, and that's just awesome because she chooses to be here with us. She made a choice because of the relationships that she made while she was with us. These same pillar teachers spend hours mentoring new teachers, pushing up our sleeves in the summers to work on curriculum, serve as PLC leaders at our school sites, and more. Send the message to all of your teachers that we are valued. And you know what? If that means that pay entry level is as high as it's supposed to be, but 15-year plus is also rewarded, and we're higher than surrounding districts, awesome. We're leading the way. Wouldn't it be awesome to lead the way in something? I think so. Third, empower Dr. Hafner and the staff that she has hired, the staff that you ultimately approved of. Trust them and the budget they have proposed. Trust that they're smart. You picked them. You hired them. You said yes. Don't micromanage the work they've done to propose a viable plan. Please remember that I might only be one vote in November. I may only be one voice, one teacher, one parent, one community member brave enough to stand before you. But I've had several conversations over the past month with many of my colleagues and friends and even strangers, and I can assure you there are many others that feel exactly the way that I do. As an assistant city administrator, my husband always says that schools will only be as good as the city, and the city will only be as good as its schools. Your vote matters. It directly impacts our city, our schools, our Lex2 teachers, and our kids. Thank you for your time. Thank you in advance for unanimously voting yes and passing the budget tonight as it was originally presented. And I want to publicly thank Ms. Branham for speaking the heart of so many teachers last month, because if I could have said those words myself, that is exactly what I was screaming into the TV while tears were rolling down my face. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hook. Next, we have Melissa Goforth.
Good evening. I hope you're enjoying your summer. I would like to encourage, I did hear all the ways that this meeting was advertised. I know when Lexington2 wants to notify parents and constituents of something going on, there are so many avenues to do so. Email, text, Class Dojo. This should be advertised more publicly. But kudos on it actually being recorded and live streamed this year. I appreciate that. Last June, I attended the workshop with my husband and then came to the same meeting. Last June, then Chairman Branham, challenged the board. We still have extra money, right? If we're in competition with all of these other school districts, why would we not be the first ones to take it to 50K? Why not take it to 50K this year and be done with it? Board Member Bray followed. I would fully vote for $50,000 as a board as long as we didn't make movements at the 20-year plus or the PhD plus, because I don't care what anybody tells me. You can't tell me somebody working 30 years with a PhD is better a teacher than somebody working 5 years with a PhD. The discrepancy between the highest paid and the lowest paid, that working 5 years, is not correlative to what happens in the classroom. It's absolutely astounding and wouldn't work in any other area ever. Dr. Hafner asked Mr. Bray to think about the person that's up at the upper years of their career that worked for pennies on the dollar for nearly 20 years of that career. Mr. Bray's reply, not to be overly crude, but if they don't like it here, every district is hiring, and another district can hire 2 bodies for our 1 and get the same output. I was embarrassed for Lexington2 then, as a parent and a constituent, just as I am now, by his remarks from last month's board meeting during the first reading budget discussions. Bray took issue with Lexington2 being approximately 3,000 higher than neighboring districts on year 17 through 28, claiming we'd have to tell taxpayers with increased millage that Lex2 was padding a section of salary points that are already 3,000 higher. All I knew was that I was sitting here beside two 15-plus-year Riverbank employees that I had just watched their children, seniors, and wholehearted products of Lex2 be recognized at the beginning, only to have their value questioned just a few minutes in. I also thought of my child's kindergarten teacher that had rushed out of her own retirement recognition ceremony to get ready for her child's BC graduation. I know for a fact she puts more than $3,000 worth of her time and personal funds for the betterment of our children. I saw it personally. That's not emotional. Disgraceful and unappreciative, all while lecturing the rest of us on fiscal responsibility and teacher retention, while using the first-year teacher that only gets a $200 raise as the example, but leaving out the sign-on bonus until it was pointed out by others. He finished with, emotions are important, but what really matters is whether y'all can get teachers in your classroom. Bottom line, this 25-year teacher, if they're upset or feel like I don't respect them, I'd love them to call me. Then they'd have to figure out which district they're going to go take a $3,000 pay cut. That language was alarming. Y'all, your classrooms, should have been we in our classrooms. Just a reminder, in South Carolina, every new teacher is provided a mentor teacher. You just heard Ms. Hook report that she mentored 4 new teachers. If your experience leaves, that it not only affects students, but your new teachers won't have quality support. Higher teacher pay reduces turnover, which improves student performance. Raising beginning teacher pay is important because most quit in the first 3 years, but if your veteran teacher feels unappreciated, they will look for jobs elsewhere as well. With the way that Mr. Bray was talking, I figured these new salary tables must be outstanding. I called my sister, she's an Horry County educator, another Title I district, and sent her the table to compare. My sister is a 17-year educator with on step 16 with a master's. Before her raise this year, she makes $3,650 more than our teacher. Her partner is a 16-year step 15 educator and makes $3,100 more than LexingtonTwo educators. I encourage healthy debate, but even as Ms. Branham was fiercely defending these veteran teachers, while I appreciated, it was also pointing out that sometimes insulting or kind of arrogant language was used like, oh, well, the 25-plus year teacher has real bills. We all have real bills. Also, at the last meeting, a potential retention bonus was mentioned. Possibly, it said the public would be told that the BOT would have to see where they stand with the new laws, like paid parental leave, but they'd like to fully explore a retention bonus. Not calling it a holiday bonus, because they might have to wait till the end of the year. Did our teachers get that bonus? As you can tell tonight, your words matter, your teachers and your parents are listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goforth. Next, we have Mary Beth Owen.
Good afternoon. I am Mary Beth Owen, a veteran teacher at Brooklyn-Cayce High School. My relationship with LexingtonTwo began in 1975 when I was a kindergartner at Wood Elementary, which is now Pine Ridge Elementary School. I was in Dottie Hallman's kindergarten class, and at that time she had 20 years of teaching experience. In 4th and 5th grade, I was lucky to have Murtis Walker as my teacher, and then she had 17 years of teaching experience. At Busby, I was taught by some amazing veteran teachers like Ronnie Tompkins, Larry Hayes, Bill Grugan, and Annette Salibi. I had to look at my yearbook today about that. At BC in 1984, I hit the jackpot. I was taught by Linda Bundrick Brown, with then having 17 years of experience, Sarah Jane Byers with 14 years of experience, Dorcas Giles, which then I felt like she had 50 years of teaching experience. And I was taught by Donna Wiles and Jane Gregory, then having 18 years of experience, Cindy Kessler, a 17-year teaching veteran, and Mary Ellen Dennis, my mentor, who at the time had 14 years of experience. A host of other teachers, counselors, and administrators throughout my years invested countless hours to mold my life. I graduated with a degree in art from Columbia College and became a teacher. Barry Bolin hired me in 1995. I was fresh out of school with unrealistic expectations and zero classroom management. Those first few years of teaching were rough, but I was very fortunate to have returned to what I felt like was home at Brooklyn-Cayce, where I worked and learned from teachers who taught me in their own classrooms. I learned to teach art from my friend and mentor, Mary Ellen Dennis, by that time having devoted 21 years to educating. My new teacher self would still be struggling in my classroom if it had not been for her. I graduated college thinking that I knew everything about teaching, and when in fact I knew very little. Experienced teachers on average are more effective than brand new teachers in terms of student achievement, attendance, and student engagement, and mentoring. A study by Teach for America found that a teacher's effectiveness doubles only after year 11. That's twice as effective as a young educator. My mom, a 38-year veteran educator in Lexington2, always told me that you are the company you keep, so choose wisely. That did not always resonate well. But after 54 years, Harvard University has proven her correct. They have found that 95% of our success depends on one thing: who you associate with. We are chameleons. We absorb the attitudes, opinions, and behaviors of those we choose to spend the most time. I have spent time with some stellar educators here in Lexington2, 49 years in Lexington2 for me, and I have learned how to educate well through my experiences here. Others have learned how to educate because of me as a mentor, colleague, and friend. I want to thank you for investing in and valuing experienced educators so that I could have a top-tier education. Thank you for continuing to prioritize experience in the classroom and choosing wisely for our students.
Thank you, Ms. Owen. Mr. LeBlanc, do we have anybody else? Okay. Thank you, everyone that came and spoke tonight. The hearing has to stay open until 6 o'clock, so we're going to sit here for about another 7 minutes, and then we will go right into, and we may take a 2-minute break, and then we'll go right into our 6 o'clock meeting. Thank you again. And at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing for 24-25 general fund budget.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Have a motion, do I have a second? Second by Mr. Key. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. We're going to take about a 2-minute break and we'll be right back. Okay. I'm ready. All right. I'm going to call to order the regular monthly meeting of the Board of Trustees for Thursday, June 20th, 2024. First item on the agenda is the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll turn that over to Vice Chair Castles.
If you'll bow your heads, please. Dear Lord, we thank you for all of our LexingtonTwo family and its many blessings. We thank you for the children who continue to grow and learn. We thank you for the ones who have graduated and are out starting their lives. We thank you for the teachers as they pursue their missions over the summer. And we thank you for the staff and the administration as they continue to work and make sure all of these blessings are made possible. Keep each of these safe and allow us to be good stewards for Lexington too. In your name we pray. Amen. If you'll stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the May 16th, 2024 board meeting. And if no objection, the agenda will stand approved as submitted. Next, we have honors and accomplishments of students and staff, and I'll turn that over to Dr. Hefner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As was mentioned, it is summertime, so a lot of our students are out enjoying their summer, and so we didn't ask any of them to come forward tonight. But since our May meeting occurred, we held high school graduations, as you know, and I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize our graduates from the class of 2024. We had roughly 500 graduates from Airport High School and Brooklyn Casey High School who worked very hard to receive their high school diplomas and also receive other recognitions. There were 218 honor graduates with the GPA of 3.5 or higher, 20 Palmetto Fellows, 375 Life and Hope Qualified Scholarship recipients, 30 early college program participants who earned college credits at no cost during the high school day, 27 South Carolina Seal of Biliteracy recipients, 11 AP Scholars, 2 South Carolina Teaching Fellows, and 2 National Merit Scholarship finalists or semifinalists. So in our next meeting on August 1st, I'll reflect a bit more on scholarships, where our students are attending college, and career opportunities. But tonight, if you will, please join me in congratulating the 2024 graduating class of Brooklyn Casey High School and Airport High School one more time. We hope that they are all out enjoying a much-deserved restful summer and having a little fun. So that concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Hefner. Next item on the agenda is public participation, and we have one participant, and we follow board policy BDEH. And I will now call to the podium Ms. Melissa Goforth, who will be discussing topics on the agenda 6A, 12A, and 9A.
Good evening. First off, it's so great to see a crowd of veteran teachers here, 15-plus year educators that are here making a stand for themselves. I appreciate that very much. And please, if you're watching this, make sure you watch the last budget session, because if you refer to the minutes, for example, when I spoke last year, it said that I made recommendations and comments before my 5 minutes were up. So no details at all. Thank you for allowing this one to be live streamed this year and for all input to be included. Appreciate that. Also glad to see familiar faces. One note was, I'd like to start with something positive before I get into a couple other topics, and that was the most recent primary elections. And I just need you all to know, you may be aware that a request from Lexington County was sent out to all LexingtonTwo teachers and staff, but I don't think many understand that LexingtonTwo saved the day as far as it goes with the Lexington County elections, and that there were several neighboring counties that had to consolidate precincts. They did not have enough poll managers. Once LexingtonTwo opened the door for Lexington County for that request, we had in less than 3 business days, more than 30 educators or staff members and several of their teenagers that could be poll managers' assistants sign up. And Lexington County did not have to close any precincts strictly because of Lexington2. So they absolutely deserve to be recognized. And just know that there's a runoff for some of us on the 25th. They'll may be looking for managers or at least alternates there. And in November. Absolutely paid training plus Election Day work will earn you $320 with the county for Election Day. If you can manage a classroom, you can absolutely manage a precinct. And keep in mind, we have school board elections this year. Elections have consequences. So please consider running if you are retiring or maybe leaving the district for some reason. Back to my concerns as a parent. One of them, I didn't get to finish with the budget, is that I do look forward to seeing the superintendent update at some point once the campaign is completed with Flock and Rally. Our district spent $130,000 on this contract. That was the first time it's ever been done. And I'd like to see what statistics and tangible results we can attribute to that campaign, as well as whether it's justified spending that much money in the future on something like that. Furthermore, through whispers of the community, I just want to say I strongly hope that Lexington2 is not entertaining the idea of employing the use of a lobbyist with our legislature. And finally, about KEC policy and executive session tonight. I look forward to you all discussing that. I'm a little confused because it was my understanding that KEC policy was frozen until we heard from the state legislature. I went to that meeting in February where they were talking about those provisions, and that will go into effect June 25th as there is no interference. If Superintendent Weaver doesn't pull it back, or if there's no interference by the legislature, then those regulations go into effect. And one of them that's different from our new proposed KEC policy is I watched their $225 an hour contracted attorney from Nelson Mullins, Mr. Coleman, Miles Coleman. I was there and I watched him say that taxpayer standing is an anomaly. And like Lexington2, they changed their policy to where only parents and guardians, those directly offended or possibly exposed to harm by these decisions, would be the ones able to pursue the challenge process with the state. And their policy would supersede ours. So they made it clear that a parent or guardian should be able to challenge that process, not a taxpayer that does not have standing even in court. And I believe he said something to the effect of they can still come to your board meetings, they can still, within the set amount of time, address their concerns, but they can't, in my eyes, kidnap our district with time and resources, which is what took place last year. Being at that meeting in February, seeing one of our board members walk in with a complainant that accounted for 7 books being titled. We're talking 3+ hours of special meetings, keeping the building open, security, all of us being here, not to mention the time and energy taken by the teachers and the volunteers to read books that they had not. Absolutely unacceptable. So I hope when you get that guidance, you do what's right for our district. And if you look back at the previous year at how many of those complainants were actually parents, a lot of time and energy was wasted. This book was removed without the KEC policy. Unacceptable. I'm out of time, but this book should not have been removed from our district without the KEC policy. You should follow your own policy, which ironically is what this book is all about. I read it myself. I'm reading it with my child. It should not have been removed from our district. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Goforth. All right, next, we are going to move on to administrative divisional reports, and the first report is the superintendent's update, and I'll turn that over to Dr. Hafner.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Amazingly, this has been a very busy summer since graduation. We've been meeting with school and district administration, working to prepare for the 2024-2025 school year. We have had teams of teachers in the building to work on curriculum and make adjustments as needed. We started off the summer with our inaugural Fine Arts Camp. This took place here at the Performing Arts Center, and we had teams of fine arts teachers from across the district assist with 86 students that participated, and they created high-quality performances that we were able to enjoy just 2 weeks after the camp started. So it was a quick 2-week camp, but the culminating performances in the art show was amazing. We have 140 students participating in Camp Gigi this year, and this camp will last through July 18th. Many of you are familiar, and then go and attend and assist with that camp, and it's just a great event for our students with special needs. We are also running a new camp this summer for our multi-language learners at the middle school level and have 30 students participating in that program. And lastly, we have Camp Learn Some More, which is serving a combination of 265 students for different needs, varying from the 4K level to Read to Succeed students to our multilingual learners at the elementary level. So we are also preparing for our back-to-school in-service already, which will take place July 16th for our administrators in preparation for teachers to return July 30th with students shortly thereafter on August the 7th. So we are working diligently to have staff and facilities prepared for a strong welcome back when they all return. And we just want to be ready for a great year with our students and with our staff to support our staff. So, Madam Chair, this concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions about our camps or anything like that.
Thank you, Dr. Hefner. Are there any questions? All right, we will move on. Next, we have Administrative Divisional Report, and the first one is Finance, and I will turn that over to Ms. Strickland. Got it.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight I have the financial reports ending May 31st, 2024. I'm going to start with our revenue. Our local revenue budget is $41,417,278. As of May 31st, we have received $42,264,231. That is 102% of our budget. For state sources, our budget is $65,846,441. We have received $59,464,055. That's 90% of our state revenue budget. So our total revenue budget is $107,263,719. And total, we have received $101,728,287, which is 95% of our budget. Next, the expenditures. Our total expenditures are $107,263,719. We have expended, as of May 31st, $90,561,482. That's 84% of our general fund budget. The ESSER report, as of May 31st, the fiscal year-to-date expenses are $3,791,293. Total year-to-date, as of May 31st, that was just for the month. The total year-to-date as of May 31st, no, I'm sorry, excuse me, let me stop. The total year-to-date since the beginning of the grant is $14,515,863. We have roughly $6 million encumbered, which leaves a balance of roughly $2.4 million. So we have 63% of that fund, that grant expended, and those funds do expire September 30th of 2024. The PAC report, we have total expenses of $50,297,926. So remaining on that contract is $2,886,016 with a contingency of $79,577. The last report I have is pupil activity. As of well, you can see the difference between the April and May balances for all of the schools. There was a decrease of $112,602. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Mr. Bray?
Thank you, ma'am. On looking at revenues and expenditures, I don't see any revenue where we're pulling money out of general fund balance or just general fund balance. And I don't see any expenditures where we're putting any money into general fund balance for this current year.
This current year, we're not using general fund balance
And we're-
to
and
balance
we're-
the budget.
And we're not putting anything into it?
That doesn't happen until after June 30th.
So as of the projection right now, 10 days from now, do we project to put anything into the general fund balance?
Well, a lot of things have to happen between May 31st and closing of the books. But all I can do is project.
Right.
But right now, my projection is $3 million that we'll put into general fund balance.
Gotcha.
But
So-
that is a projection.
change.
That can
Right.
change.
But as of now, we can guess to move the fund balance from 20 million to 23 million, but when we close out the books this year.
Yes, if that, I'm not sure exactly
I
what our
think-
fund balance is right
I
now.
think last year it was like 20 million and some change. Yeah, 20,700,000.
Then that would increase that number to
So
23 million.
23.7 or something around there. Thank you.
Any other questions on the financial report? Okay, all right, thank you, Ms. Strickland. Next, we will move on to Administrative Division Reports, Human Resources.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Hafner. I'd like to call Ms. Stephanie Hucks to the podium so she can give us our formative assessment on where we are with our vacancies. Thank you, Ms. Hucks.
Yes, Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Hafner, thank you and good evening. As of today, the numbers have changed a little bit, which I'm very excited about. We have 15 regular ed teacher vacancies. As of today, we only have 10 special education teacher vacancies, and we are down to 13 support staff vacancies. So we are pleased and we are still working. So, are there any questions?
Any questions? Okay. Ms. Branham? There you go, you got it.
Maybe it's a opportunity for a compliment. And I know y'all have been working hard in human resources this year, and glad to have your addition to that department and your reports every month. But I'm saying, it looks like we're probably way ahead of the game on where our vacancies normally would stand at this point, or at least looking good. You feeling pretty good about
Well, we
October?
received our notices for resignations and retirements a little bit earlier overall, but overall, we're going to end up with about the same number. We're just a little bit ahead. I think our new policy helps some. That's not all of it. And our principals are working hard, hiring folks.
They are.
And we are all doing likewise, so thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Hawks.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hucks. All right. Ms. Castles?
I wanted to ask, I see that we have a vacancy for trauma-informed behavioral. How many of those people do we have in the district? Is that the only one, or, sorry, the trauma-informed behavior coach?
We have at least one person properly trained currently, but as far as having someone with that designated 100% cost, that is not a general category that we hire for. It is a considered specialty, so you're not going to find.
I would love to, I've mentioned this before, and I hope this is in the right spot of the meeting, but Columbia College has a program for trauma-based teaching, and it would be good for all of the kids, and I would love for us to, if we ever could, help pay for some of our teachers to be trained, because I think we're seeing every day that our teachers need that under their belt just as well, so thank you.
Absolutely, and we agree with you, and we're working hard on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Castles. Are there any other questions? All right. Next, we're going to move on to unfinished business. We have one item, and it is consideration of second and final reading of the 24-25 general fund budget. And at this time, I'll entertain a motion for second reading and final reading of the 24-25 general fund budget as presented.
I make a motion to approve for second and final reading the 24-25 general fund budget.
I have a motion by Ms. Branham. Do I have a second? I have a second by Mr. Key. Is there any discussion?
I have some issues that I would like to discuss. I didn't get all my answers that I wanted in the last session. And my main concern is that we're honest about everything and we're informative to everyone. I realize that in this budget, it's a good budget for this time of year, and I realize that, but I still have some questions. We, as a board, stressed over and over again to this administration and the two before this administration, not to put anything into the ESSER account that would be reoccurring expense. We stressed it over and over again. And then you look on the budget here and you see that Lex 2.5 should be going away because you've turned that into the general fund expense. Social workers, are they going away? But you put that a cost into that budget as well. So you did exactly what we asked you not to do because those are going to be reoccurring expenses. It's hard to be upfront and honest when our request is not being observed and not being honored. And now because we put those in ESSER money and because those are good programs for our kids, they need to be paid for. So you're rolling them into general fund accounts after being told time and time again, don't do it. Is there a reason why you just went ahead and did it anyway?
Sorry, Ms. Kessler, I'm trying to get, there we are. Okay. We did have some discussion at the board workshop about Lex 2.5, and we talked about the continuation of that program, and that it was started under the ESSER funding, and we wanted to look at the data, and I believe we provided the data on the number of students who participated and the number of successes with those students. And so when we talked about it at the workshop, the thought was that we would want to continue that program. So I wasn't here in the origin of the program, but I did see the successes that the schools had this last 2 years and when we discussed it at the workshop. And as far as the social workers, there was a small number tied, just one.
Well,
Go ahead, please.
So with the social workers, what I did for the current year,
The camera's not gonna be able to hear you.
okay. For the social workers, what I did for the current year, I did move 3 for partial of the year in this current year into the ESSER funds because it was already written in there. But they are in the general fund budget for next year as well as this year. So it's not an addition to the general fund budget. They're budgeted in the general fund for both. If I didn't have to move those expenses into the ESSER fund, but I was trying to save the general fund.
Okay, I understand all that, but if we could know those things beforehand, not after the fact, that would help for me.
Okay.
And people like me. Salary and fringe, up until 22, 23 year, we had basically a primary formula for figuring the budget. It was based on 85-15 percentage. Now, this year, you have switched it to and lowered salary and fringe from 85 to 83%. That 2% cut is $2,480,000, while increasing and changing the programs in operation from 15% to 17%. What is driving that need to put 2% more into paying for programs in operation rather than leaving it in salary so that we don't have to worry about anything and we can give these valuable people who are the workforce of our district? We know who does the work. We know who makes the difference for our district. It is our teachers, and it always has been. So what is driving that percentage to change?
Ms. Strickland, you want to comment about the increases in operations and mandates and the things we were even going over today?
Well, with the non-salaries and fringes, you know, the cost of everything is increasing. You know, again, we met with all of the departments twice. You know, originally, we met as a cabinet, you know, to have our original budget meetings, and then we met, my director of finance met with them again to go through their budgets to see what their needs were. You know, so all of this is based on their needs and the cost of this current year's expenses, because we did evaluate that as well. You know, some places in the current year's budget, there was not enough budgeted in some accounts for things that we are, you know, using. Substitutes, for example. You know, I have to increase those.
Yes, I do. But you know, something was mentioned just now, and I'm thinking, when the budget was fixed out last year from year to year, and I've noticed it for a number of years that I've been on school board, it just amazes me that you can be, that there's so many loopholes in the budget that we see. How in the, think about fixing your own budgets for your home. When you budget out your money, you don't have $130,000 to pay a contract fee during the mid-year and pull it out of the thin air. You have to plan to pay that $130,000. This district didn't. That came in long after the budget was put together. Was that process even thought about? And then you could go into the budget and pull $130,000, but we can't pull it for teacher salary increases? 4 years ago, in 2020, the administration came to us and they wanted to make revision for administrative pay. We listened to them and we granted it. Nothing was mentioned about teachers. When the governor pushed and was pushing to get the beginnings teacher salaries up to $50,000, I said, hooray, hooray. And then all of a sudden we put in pay raises for everybody else. The teachers are like I said, they're the workforce. They're the ones that do the work. They're the ones that bring home the bacon. And yet we throw everybody else in their category. There's no question about the need for raises for teachers. And it baffles me that you can go into a budget and you can pull in mid-year without precursor and pull out $130 million. And then travel. I would like to know, in fact, I'm requesting right now publicly that I want to request for how much money was spent on travel for administration, teachers, everyone in the district, to the penny for the calendar year 23-24, which you should have in a couple of days. I can't imagine how much was spent for that. And I'm thinking, it really worries me because that 17% of our pay, which has been increased by over, like I said, $2,480,000 to spend on those kinds of things when I think it's needed in the salary more than in the frivolous things. 5 years ago, in 2019, our budget was $84.3 million. In 22, it's 95. In the last 2 years, our budget has increased $28,662,093. This 3% raise that these teachers are going to get only equates to, let's see, $2.7 million. Compared to this other thing, an increase in what we're budgeted, that's nothing. So as far as my part's concerned, this thing seems to be out of whack, and I just think we need to answer and be more responsible to the 17% of money that we're spending. When you look in the material that we were given, and you look on the budget increase to support services page, I looked at that, and here you've got instructional pay with ESSER funds rolled into the general fund, $407,000. Then you've got technology rolled over from ESSER, rolled into it. Then you've got Lex 2.5. That's $1,060,521. It seems like we're spending crazy, like our public is. And we can't keep going to plastic in our budget. And that's why I question our budget. It is not over teacher pay. They are very deserving, the most deserving people in the district to get a teacher pay. There's no questions about it. Seen it in my entire life, witnessed it, experienced it, lived through it. Paid a house payment of $311.64 and wondered if we were going to have money at the end of the month to pay for groceries. And I'm living in that house 53 years later. So I totally understand the position they're in, and I understand why they're here to address. But the issue with the budget is not over teacher salary. It's over everything else that we're doing and not getting results. When we're told that we're going to get results, I've got the answer and I'm going to get you all up there. Until somebody shows me a report card, we're not successful in much. It's nice to have accolades and it's nice to read all these nice things, but bottom line is that we're not showing the progress that we need to show as a district for the money that we're spending to get the results that we need. I handed something to Mr. Warren today as a challenge for him, and it should be a challenge to our district. We need to be number one. We've worked hard enough to be number one. Let's put our heads together and do a better job on everything, including this daggone budget. So I still am not hearing what's driving the budget that we have to increase spending on contracts and everything to 17% and taking it out of the fund that pays salaries and miscellaneous expenses for budget, for that pay. Then if you look on page, I have a couple more questions. On the LexingtonTwo school allocation, what does the administration need $11 per person for expenses wise?
So that gives them the 100 monies to utilize within their school for needs for the administration.
What kind of needs would they need that this district is not already planning? That's $99,000.
So in the past, you want to explain how we're shifting the way it's been done to the allocations, please?
I'm not sure what was done in the past as far as the allocation to the schools. I do believe that some years ago, it was allocated to the schools this way. This is the way a lot of districts do that. But the $11 to these schools for administration covers the administration supplies. It covers, anything in the office for principals or assistant principals, when they do professional development to reimburse their mileage, anything concerning what is in the office for the supplies for administration.
So that mileage and travel fee comes out of their allotment of this $99,000?
Depending on, is there a grant that pays for that? It's all, there could be professional development that federal funds could pay for. But if there's not, then yeah, it would come out of this allotment.
So when I see this reply for my request tonight, I should see where the schools have paid a lot of the travel expense and not the district additional money?
It depends on if instruction has budgeted for that in their request. I allocate the funds to the school and then they distribute it as they need it. That's what I've always done, and that's what most districts do. They've got to have money for supplies and the needs for the administration.
I know everything is a learning curve and administration's 2 years, but there just needs to be more transparency. Now to fund balance. In 2008 and 2009, this district went through nightmares because we were really concerned that we would not be able to pay bills. They would not have salaries. They would not have provisions for their classroom, and it was a very scary time. When we go messing with this fund balance, and I just realized, I'm just heard, and I heard it the last time too. It doesn't go unnoticed. I know that you're planning to take $3 million.
3.3.
Well, I've got it written right here. It's $3+ million out of fund balance to put it in your budget. You're getting You've increased the budget for this school year 28 million, almost $28 million. Why do we need to go out in fund balance? If we get into hard times and no one knows what November's coming, we can't predict it, we have no clue. It may go smooth as slick ice. It may go wonderful, but it may not. And if we go taking money out of this fund balance, we're not going to have money to write checks for them to live on. Then who's going to be upset? Fund balance is, in my opinion, is something that we do not play with. And I know we've got $20,688,000. I know that we've got, that you only need 1 month, which is $10,344,045.20 to meet state standards. We have more than that, thank goodness. We have 2 years of supply if we needed it. But if we go spending that money, even though you're going to replace it if there's $3 million left over, and you get to split it between the two, you'll get $1.5 million in going back into this fund balance, but you're still taking out over $3 million. That's very dangerous, in my opinion. And if we didn't have to take it out, I would feel much better, because my no vote for this budget has not a thing to do with teacher salaries. Because I know they're going to get the vote. I know that's going to pass, and that's going to come to fruition, and I want it to. But I want to emphasize it is dangerous to go into fund balance. And I don't think you'll see it. And I also am not happy with the fact that the 1815 has been changed to accommodate frivolous spending. There's no way you should be able to go into a budget, even in a school district this size, and pull out $130,000 for this, $25,000 for that, $50,000 for this, $70,000 for that. That should not be pockets of money put into that and sloughed into that budget for that kind of spending through the year. Budget means budget. Going back, and I'm sorry to take up so much time, but if my questions aren't answered, I am not going to be a happy camper. And I'm just sorry about that's the way I am built, and I can't help it. You've got leasing for bus lot, lease, $216 million. I assume part of that money might be going for bus, but what other things are we leasing
That is the bus.
would contribute to the $216,000?
The $216,000 is for a radio lease. We've worked with our schools this year, and since I came on board, gotten some feedback about the need for a unified communication system across our district with radios, with school radios, where they can communicate with us, we can communicate with them. We can communicate emergency messages to schools and talk to principals on a radio stream that doesn't currently, exist. So historically, schools have been provided radios, but they've also had to purchase their own radios, when there were needs, for those. So this is a initiative for us to totally unify our communication system as far as school radios go across the district and get us, where we need to be with communication. This doesn't have anything to do with the transportation. This is school radio lease. So over 300 radios, which is what we need to kind of start and get ourselves in a good situation with our radios, and so that's what that's for.
Outside of administrators and people here, who else would have access for 300 radios?
Well, you have your assistant principals, your school resource officers. Several teachers would have radios. When you talk about 16 schools, and our safety director, Ms. Sangiano, has met with schools, looked at their current numbers, tried to make sure she understands what the needs are. We've worked together on identifying that. So that is the need, and starting from scratch to be able to unify our communication system.
How many people are you providing telephones to?
Cellular phones?
Yes.
I don't know that firsthand. I know that principals and assistant principals and
See,
district
you're
administrators.
double dipping. You've got the radios, you've got cell phones, you've got this, the other. It's like it's a Christmas time and there's no limit to the list. I can't believe that everybody can not do
Well,
away with some of the doubles.
I understand that, but to speak to that point, in an emergency situations, cell phones are not the way to communicate, with administrators, to get a message across quickly, to make sure you provide clear direction. Using a cell phone for that type of communication you can, they are handy, we use them, they're an important part of what we do. But for emergency situations and communication, radios are the gold standard for that.
Okay, I'll take that as an answer. What about the energy increases for the PAC and DC?
This is a, much larger facility than where we were previously as far as the DEC goes, and also the addition of the Performing Arts Center, and working with our contractor and estimating energy costs. That is what we're looking at. That is part of the inflation that we fight and the increases we fight, and this facility does come with increased energy costs, energy increases throughout the course of a year.
And I understand that part, but we do not have to light up like a Christmas tree either. We don't need to be a landing strip for the airport over here, and it's quite that lit up. Somehow, somebody's got to be a little bit economic thinking here, and we're not. And bring up another point from this facility. You all sat down and you figured out a rental schedule. You're already not following it because you're already giving special treatment to some groups and giving them special prices. Those prices could be used to pay part of this energy bill, and you start playing good old boy rentals with this facility, and you're going to create some hatred out in the community that we're trying to serve. And I've already heard about it. And it hasn't even been used yet from those groups. And already been told about the special treatment that a couple of people have been given. Why are we doing that to ourselves? It's like they said, you've got rules, follow them. Don't break your own rules. Well, that money
I'd be happy to look at that if you could provide, what you're hearing and what groups are getting special treatment. I'd be happy to hear that and look. That information would be
glad to
beneficial.
share it.
Yes, ma'am.
Those are my concerns, and I don't think they're going to change because they've been my concerns for a number of years now, and they keep getting the same political answers, and we're not cleaning up. And we could offer so much more for our teachers. We could offer so much more for our kids and for our community if we learned how to be as strict with this budget and the monies that we have here as you are with your own homes. You're not going to put yourself in jeopardy of losing your own homes. Don't put us in jeopardy of getting in trouble here at the district and not being able to pay the bills. And we don't want to go out and just raise the millage. Last year, I said, I'll vote to raise the millage to max last year, but don't come back to me next year and expect. Well, now you don't want not only max millage this year, you want look-back millage, which gives you a heck of a lot more, 21 meals, and each meal that you're spending is $170,000. Folks, somebody needs to get a grip on, and I want us to be best, I want us to be number one, but I want us to do it in a manner that is acceptable and passable to the public that we serve. And if they knew all of the things that we've just even talked about in here, I think you'd have quite a few homeowners, business owners particularly, who'd be very upset because they're going to have to pick up the tab. You saw how much is coming locally, 40, and there's been so many numbers I can't keep up with any of them, but I've got them written down. It's
49 million.
Thank you, $49 million that our community is paying for this education. It's a bunch of money, particularly when you look at who's moving into our district. We're a low-income district. We're also low rentals. We have buying capabilities here, or it's just more economic to live in this district, and we're drawing a big influx of students, but we've got to be able to pay for the bill. Somebody's got to pay it, and not all those people are paying taxes. So I think we need to be very conscious of how we do it. And my no vote, again, to the teachers is not, doesn't have a thing to do with salary, has everything to do with some spending that we just, I think is out of hand. And again, I would like to have the answer for the 83% change. Thank you.
Ms. Kessler?
Just a point of clarity that we did not have a millage increase last year, in my first year. We didn't ask for one.
I think it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
All right, is there any more discussion? Ms. Rucker?
All right, so thank you, Ms. Kessler, for that, and thank you for speaking to all areas of the budget. You know, I do want to say that, you know, the teacher salary schedule should stay as is, as proposed. Absolutely should. I would like to see us get back to the 85-15 formula that Ms. Kessler spoke about. Also, the fund balance, I would like to see more work done to maybe reduce other areas, not salaries, but other areas of the budget so that we don't have to ever even propose using fund balance. So I just wanted to mention that. So as far as Lex 2.5, going back a few minutes ago when you were talking about that, we did get feedback on the elementary schools and middle schools. It was very positive. But at the time, we didn't have a lot of feedback on the high schools, so I would like to hear more about, you know, the outcomes at our high schools and if it's serving those students well, as well. So I think that was, Ms. Kessler pretty much summed it up. I mean, I want teacher salaries, increases, getting to the 50,000, you know, increases across the board, awesome. There's other areas that I feel like really should have been looked at a little closer. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rucker. Mr. Gray?
Madam Chair, thank you. First off, I think we talked about it a little bit right at the beginning, but massive kudos to the 2 different events that have happened here with our kids. The amount of kids that were here at the camp that was thrown together quickly, and then I think Dr. Burgraff and I spoke afterward, like, it was absolutely phenomenal. If it was a sport that did something in 2 weeks, it'd be in the news. So I think that, like, one of my big concerns was that we were going to build this huge, expensive building, and then there weren't going to be kids in it. It was going to be dust balls, and there was going to be just events for shows on the weekend. And it did my heart great to see all the kids running through here, and 2 fantastic performances. So kudos to all those that were involved. Second, thanks for the teachers and employees who specifically came here to speak to the budget. I know that many of you disagree with some of the points I made, and that's completely fine. The fact that you're here is awesome, though, because so often we don't have but 1 or 2 people here, and there's nobody really opining and giving insight. From last meeting to this meeting, I got 1 email, some social media stuff, and then I was able to speak to a lot of people in person, and that was great. It's never fun to be on this side, probably like it's not fun to be on that side if I say something, but that's what good discourse does. It makes us better, hopefully. So I do thank y'all, even if there's some bones of contention. I have about 11 different things. Most of them are somewhat to what Ms. Kessler said and Ms. Rucker said, but that need to kind of either be addressed or put out there. Number 1, 85% salary ratio has gone down to 83%. But further to that, and you kind of hit on this a little bit, Ms. Kessler, but of that 83%, now that the instruction part of that 83% of salaries is gone from 68% down to 66.33%. So not only is to Ms. Kessler's point, is our entire, if we have a pie, it used to be 85% of that pie went to salaries. Now that pie is only 83%, but of that smaller now piece, it's gone down further for instructional. And while we may disagree on a lot of things, I think everybody in this room can all agree that without a doubt the most important thing is having a teacher in a classroom. And so if we're continually to grow, I think one of the comments is the cost of everything's increasing. I agree, but that ratio should stay the same. If everything's increasing, we should be keeping the ratio of what is going to instructional salaries the same. That should not be decreasing. It's not like we should be pulling the cost back on Teacher World. And remember, we're doing a big push on Teacher World. That's the other part that I don't think is really kind of like fully felt here. Is we're doing a large increase to teachers from the bottom side, but across the whole way. and it's still being smaller. That means our non-stuff, our non-salary piece of that pie it's literally almost doubled in 2 years. And that's a lot. Now, there are things that are expenses, powering this building is gonna be a lot different than powering the old little building on Ninth. But I feel strongly if we're doing a $17 million increase, there's no way that we can keep ticking down. I suggest maybe we don't do it here and now, but I think there's two things this board needs to do between now and the next budget season, whoever's on this board come November. One is we need to make that 85% a policy. Because to Ms. Kessler's point, hey, we've passed 2 budgets, we've done this, but it's on us that we're in the same spot every year. The last 2 budgets were in fairly turbulent times. Both years, there was something bigger going on, and so the budget kind of slid through. This is the first year we've had a lot of time and energy to push to it, and I think you've done a great job, and your team's done a great job. But if we don't put parameters as a 7-member board, we can't, like next year, we can't say, oh, it just keeps happening. We have to put that policy in there. So I think we should strongly look at that, Madam Chair, as putting that on our schedule. And with that same policy, and directly to what Ms. Kessler was saying earlier, is we need a policy for a fund balance minimum. We shouldn't be getting to the point where our fund balance can say, oh, I know that you'll have to project, that's part of life. But at the end of the day, if you go back and look at our budget projection for 23-24, it fluctuates every month. We amend the budget as we go, right? Like that's how, the only way it's a zeroed out budget is that we are changing it. That's just how it goes. We don't budget like you do at your house where you have a set and then that's all you do, because ours keeps changing, unfortunately. But I think that we need to push a policy that says we have a floor for our fund balance. Our fund balance will never be less than 16% of our general fund budget, and for it to go above 24%, it needs to be X, Y, and Z. Because at the same time, we don't want to start raising millage on our constituents and our business owners just to be sitting on it and never have it. There's a sweet spot that we need to be smart about. I do have a question, Dr. Hafner or Sky. In the instructional salary versus the regular other salaries, what do coaches count as? They're instructional, correct? Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So, how about teachers' assistants?
Supports.
That's support?
That's support.
Okay. I was asked that by 2 separate people, and I didn't have an answer, so appreciate that. We are budgeting right now, tell me if I'm wrong, off of our vacancies, which we have just teachers, we have 25 vacancies currently. And we budgeted off of 12 years, masters, and we budget 100% of those in this year's budget, right?
And current year?
In this coming year.
This coming year,
yeah, the
yes.
24-25 budget.
Yes.
Have we done data in this district for the last 1, 2, or 3 years to see what that burn rate really should be? Yes, I know that we can say that the reason we picked masters is because there's 5, and that's the middle column, and the reason we picked 12 is because but the 100% budget, I'm not against using 100%, but when's the last time we've ever had 100% fill rate year-round? When's the last time we had 95%?
3 years.
That we were at 95%?
3 years, you 100% fill rate. Maybe 4. At the start of school.
Right, I'm saying for the whole year. When's the last time, if we had the FTE count by day, that it was the whole year?
Maybe 5 years.
I mean, so the times,
Prior to COVID.
the times they are changing, but are our ways that we're budgeting changing with those times?
Well, what I do personally is if we were to hire 100% of staff, I want a place to put all of those people. I want all of those costs included in the budget.
Agreed. So there's 3 variables, though. There's the 100% fill rate, the vacancy rate.
Correct.
There's the left to right rate.
Right.
And then there's the top to bottom rate. And so we're 100% here, and then we're kind of midline in here. My request going forward is that 100% is arbitrary, because for 4 or 5 years, we haven't been close to there. And I would assume that even 5 years ago, we didn't have 100% throughout the entire year. We probably had every spot filled, but you have extended vacancies, you know, people leave early, all those things that happen. I cannot imagine that if we have 2080 times 180 people, that we hit every one of those hours. Like, that's just not feasible. So I would say in the future, so that we don't get to this point of, and it's directly where Ms. Kessler's coming from, how do we get 130,000 to do this in the middle of the year? That's why, because I don't want to use the word fluff, but we're not using a statistical number on what our budget should be. And that's why that money kind of pops up. And I'm okay if that's what we want to do it, but where I have a real, if that's the concept we want to do, but I have a real problem when we start going to say, hey, taxpayers, we need to take a lot more of your tax, but we're ultimately kind of fluffing, or we're being extremely conservative. And I think there's a big difference in fiscal conservatism and then like prudential money management on that. And I just think it's very hard to go say, hey, I need y'all to give me more money, but there's a good chance we're not going to really use it what we're saying it for. So again, it's probably too late here. I mentioned it last time and the time before, but I think that's something that we should be kind of held accountable. Mr. Edwards, or Cindy, did you say 300 radios? Or it wasn't 300, was it? It was 300,000.
No, radios, total radios.
I don't really think that we should get into the individual expenditures. We should set policy, figure out how much taxes we should levy, and, you know, hire Dr. Hafner and her team to do the great thing, but 300 does seem.
Well, that's honestly a decrease from what we currently have in the schools.
And did you say that we supply the SROs with it?
The school resource officer, a school radio, yes.
So they're carrying 2 radios?
Have 2 radios.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, I just wanted to make sure that I heard that right. I had not looked into that. Number 8, I already hit that one. Hit number 9. Look at this. We're moving on. I only got 2 more. So fund balance, and we kind of talked about this. We're not going to know what it's going to be, but if we get 3.3, as you mentioned, somewhere like that, let's say just over 3, which is a big if. We still got 10 days left, and you've got to balance the books. But we take 3.3 back out, so it's basically a net 0, right? That leaves us at what we were at 2023, which is 20, I don't have the number here, but it's 20 million something, right? Mm-hmm. And if you take that 20 million and you divide it by what our projected budget is, that's 124 million, and that puts us at 14%. And this goes back to what we talked about last month, is we do not need to be diving below 16%. I think most government agencies and, you know, all the smart people at MASC and all those folks, they tell you, hey, it's 2 months is the minimum. Yeah, you got it, by law, you have to have 1 month, but when we start talking about bonds and all this other stuff, we need to have 2 months. You start getting over 3 months and you're starting to hoard money, and that doesn't do any good. So that 2 to 3 months. Well, 2 months is 16.667 repeating. So if we're getting down to 14%, and I know we're taking some of those costs, I don't know how we go tell a business owner, hey, we're going to go into the fund balance, and we're not. I don't think anybody here feels that the budget is bad, but I also don't think anybody has confidence that it is as frugal or as efficient as we would be, to Ms. Kessler's point, if it was our own money. And that is our job, is to make sure that we're spending the taxpayer dollar as if it was our own. So I've heard the teacher side loud and clear. I still will say, I don't know that some of the comments, I don't know that I agree with. There was never a discussion on decreasing a raise. Everything was a step increase. So any of the spots, I think I sent an email back, we're getting multiple $1,000 raise. It was more about doing, and one person made a good point. If you move up 3%, and this was the discussion we tried to fight in the working group, if you move one group up 3% and you don't move the next group, if they're not 3% above already, you're paying somebody at a lower level above. Like, we can't do that. And that's the point, the entire point that was lost of a regressive increase. If you do a flat rate increase every single year, you get a disparity between the floor and the ceiling. So if you go back 20 years ago, the floor and the ceiling were $20K apart. If you look at the floor and the ceiling now, it's $50K apart. $50K. So that's a big deal. it's not saying, hey, we should take this side and take your money away. It's not that when you come next year, you're getting a decrease. No, everyone, the goal is still that everyone is getting the step increase, which is already large. It's just a matter of doing a regressive rate so that you can start to clean up that overall thing. And I hate that was lost, because I think every year that we don't do that, we get further and further behind. And that's going to be a big, big issue. And, you know, maybe other boards will get a chance to fix it. I don't know how that you can just fix it easily, though, because every time that you do that one year, from the numbers I've looked at, it takes about 2.5 years to fix. And so if we've done it for 7 years, now we're at 9.5 or 11.5 years to fix. So I'll skip over that one. But lastly is we have millage request. And that means that we're going to go out to the people in our in our community and say, hey, currently you pay this amount of mills, but we're going to raise that millage so that we can get more money. We're going to change our local revenue higher. And when we do that, we have to be very prudent about it. And I have spoken, I think everybody on the board here is probably sick of hearing me talk in general about it, but we have to be very smart about going back and taking our look-back mills, because we'll never be competitive when something is rough. Like, I think I've said that probably every year. 3 years down the road, if you didn't pick up those mills from 2 years back, you can never go back and catch that up. It's almost like when we do the flat rate teacher pay, you can't go back and catch that up. So I have no problem discussing with anybody in the community saying, hey, we're coming and we're taking the mills that were left on the table the past 2 years. I cannot in this budget say we're taking those past 2 years, plus we need to raise this year, plus we need to take fund balance less than 16%. For the people what I campaigned on 4 years ago, I can't do that. So with all of that to say, or suffice to say, I move to amend the budget for 2 items. The first item being, let me recant. I move to amend the budget for 3 items. The first item being that we only ask for mills up to our look-back mills, which I think is 13.87? 13.67. So that's the first point. The second point is that we ensure in our budget that the general fund budget does not dip below 16%. I will caveat and say in future, I would love for us to make that number 17, but I think we're too late now to get there, but I would love for us to make that policy. And the third point is that we keep the teacher salary schedule exactly as is proposed right now. So those are my 3 points in my amendment to the motion.
All right, at present, we have an amended motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Madam Chairman.
Yes, Ms. Brown.
I don't think it's a second to that, but I would ask that those be taken separately, because I don't think it's.
Okay, here, let's all do one we can all agree on. I'll do it backwards. Madam Chair, I move that the current budget keeps the teacher salary table, sorry, I have some cords under here, as it is.
You want to,
Okay.
but we're amending the motion to keep.
Right,
I mean, the
as it
salary
is.
is as it is. It is as it is. It's on the budget.
As proposed. Right, correct. As proposed, because it isn't anything as of now.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion to keep the teacher salary as proposed
Yes.
on the budget that we've been presented. Okay, it's kind of,
I'm only discussion on that, as if you vote to approve the budget, aren't you keeping the salary schedule?
The overall budget, yes, and that's why Madam Chairman's confused, but it was just part of a 3-point budget, because here's the deal. When
I'm
we
not
take-
confused, Trey.
Sorry,
The budget
why you
is
looked
what
at me
it is.
silly,
I
so-
think maybe you're confused, but I know what the
So
teacher salaries are.
If we take the revenue down, then we need to put a floor on what we don't want the administration to change. So the movement is, hey, we're going to now say you can't get 20 mills, you can get 13.67, but you can't touch the teacher salary pay. So those two can't really be, yeah, they can be broken apart, and then it's silly, and I kind of agree with your face, but
Okay, well, why don't we take number 3 off? We know what the teacher salary is. If you want to make an amendment, number 1 amendment,
That will stay in the budget there.
yeah, that's going to stay in the budget. The teacher salary's not moving.
perfect. Number
Okay, so
number
you
two.
can make a motion for your number 1 and number 2.
I move to limit the mill increase from 20 to 13.67, which covers all look-back mills from the prior 2 years.
We do realize that this is June 20th.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We have an amended motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
I think somebody needs to fully explain that. You've got it
So-
open-ended.
Right,
and
so
you need to
right
give an
now,
explanation exactly what you mean by that proposal.
right, so right now, we have a proposed 21 mil increase, which is high.
Yes.
We don't, yeah, so we all agree with that. The look-back mills is 13.67. So it would just be a reduction in mills to be a little more, to do right by our taxpayers.
Additionally, what that does is that doesn't allow, that can make sure that we don't lose any mills. To 13.67.
Okay, so that would be almost 8% cut, so that's 8 meals short, so it would be 8.
Correct.
$230,000 short.
One,
in
one,
the budget.
1.5 million.
So the budget would have to be reduced 1.6 million, that's what I have up, 1.5, 1.6 million to get to that 13.67 mils.
May I ask a question? Scott, you want to answer this one?
Sure. I can try.
The question is first.
I know.
At the end of this school year,
I'm sorry, what did you say?
there's probably going to be some money left at the end of the school, and there should never be. And the fact that you got 6 million left over makes me just want to vomit. For it should be tied down closer than that, folks. We've got years and years of experience. To think that we're 6 million after all we've spent so frivolously this past year, that there's still $6 million left?
Don't forget to turn your mic on in case people hear.
I don't know if I want this to go out.
Touche. It's on, it's on.
It's ridiculous that this has happened to us. It should not be this way. We're smarter people and should be able to figure it out a little closer than that, unless you've got an extreme emergency. And then you've got an emergency fund to dip into if you have a true emergency. To not throw a feather in this, we've got to make a decision. This is the 20th, and we've got just 10 days to file. That's why I wanted to move this meeting and have it earlier, but that didn't happen. Will that, if there's 3 million left over, excuse me for pointing. It's my index finger. If we get that 3 million left over and $1.5 million can go into general fund, we could do that. But if it's not going to be there, you've got a knot in this formula.
Then there's places you've got to cut spending.
That's no problem for me, but it's going to be for the
Neither.
people that are going to be here.
Agreed.
So that's a gamble that you're going to have 1.5 million put into general fund and have 1.5 to put in fund balance. You may want to designate this year to be able to reduce the millage, that the entire balance be put into
Fund
to
balance.
compensate.
Well, that is what I would do. That was what I would propose to the board, that we commit that $3 million. We would assign that $3 million for next year's budget.
But we may not need that, because if the 7 times the 230 million, we won't need 3 million in there, and next year will be the same way. We'll have millions, you all will have millions left in the budget. That should never happen. I mean, I wish my budget was that way. I'd love to have $100,000 in my budget at the end of the year, but.
And that goes back to the point of why I asked the question about budgeting at 100%.
Can we get a formula just to replace the difference in the millage so that there is money to cover the budget that's being proposed.
Is that to me?
Yes, in your proposal.
Say it one more time so I can write it down.
I don't want to put any more into the general fund than to cover the millage that you're going to deduct from the 21 mills. You're going to deduct down to 13 mills.
0.67.
So that's 803 mills shy.
Correct. So that's 1.6 whatever.
Yes,
Is that what it comes out to, Sky? 1.6?
that's what I was asking her to do, is to figure that out, how much that would be, equate to.
7.36 mils.
7.63 and the value of
7.36.
3 cent dyslexia. That's fine. 7.3 and what's the value of our mill?
Roughly $230,000.
$230,049.26.
I'm not doing the pennies. That's call it 1.7. That's 169. 1.69. And of that, so to your point, of the 3.3, that's right at half of it.
Dr. Hafner, what's your take?
My take is that, part of, to your point about trying to manage your household budget to the penny, and you don't want to have the excess, that is exactly what Mrs. Strickland is trying to do, is budget for every position, all the increases that we've had in transportation and that we know to expect in this building with power and energy, and all the things that you've mentioned that we've talked about. It is, yes, we have trended a little bit in that 95 percentile since COVID, but it's also our strong desire to fill those positions so that we do have certified teachers in the classroom. And what Sky and I don't want to happen is that if we have a candidate come along that we haven't budgeted for, but we have the position and can legally fill it, then we do have to go into fund balance because we don't have it. And also, if I may, even today, we had a conversation about our special education numbers. We don't have certain numbers of FTEs right now to cover the special education load that we know we're going to have. And by law, we have to serve those kids. So we are going to have to find an FTE, a full-time equivalent, from somewhere. And so it's going to be one of those sitting vacancies right now so that we're in compliance with the law to serve those kids. Because if we put a sub in that room, we're not in compliance, and we're going to get dinged. So it's things like that that come up, that those vacancies are necessary to possibly utilize not only for the English teacher at BC, but maybe for a special ed situation that pops up that we have no control over, but we have to serve.
Yes, ma'am, and I totally understand that, but I don't think we're asking to not fund 100% of the faculty. That's not it. How did you come to that conclusion?
What are you asking to not fund? I mean, that was mentioned, but Mr. Bray, excuse me. I'm sorry, Mr. Bray.
I don't think so. I think
Mr. Bray was asking about not funding 100%.
All he's asking is to reduce the fund balance, and if there's $3 million left over, that's going to cover that portion. I don't see where.
And that would be with it still at 100%.
I don't think the 100% is, no one's proposing to change that.
Well, with the cost of our operations and our staff that we have the vacancies for us, we will be short. If we deduct the millage based on the budget that we were asked to create by the board at the workshop and the first reading.
Ms. Branham.
So now that,
There you go.
not for 3 million. So as to, I'll go ahead and speak because I would vote against both of what is about to be proposed amendment. If you're going to cut down the millage that's being asked for, and then you're also going to ensure the general fund not go below 16% as part of your qualifications on this budget, then you've picked up this budget, you've shredded it, you've thrown it out the window, and you've told them, go back and bring us something different. And maybe that is the intent, but the biggest part of our budget, as you've all acknowledged, is whether it's 83% or 85%, is in salaries. And so the main place you're gonna go get your money for your dropping of the millage and your ensuring of the general fund not going down below 16% is potentially salaries, because you can't end up passing a budget that is not balanced. And Ms. Strickland has gone to school. She's been a finance officer for a number of years. I have to trust the person that Dr. Hefner put in that position and that I voted to approve. I have to trust the information that this young lady, who has spent a lot more time than any of us looking at every eventuality and every possibility, has looked at to bring us this budget. I'm sure that our administration, Dr. Hefner and Dr. Strickland and Mr. Warren and Dr. Cooper and everybody else in here, went down to the principals doing your budgets and everything else. I don't think anybody is intentionally trying to put fluff in a budget. I think what they're trying to do is to make sure to cover everything. Now, as I mentioned before at the last meeting, with a budget, there are plenty of things that Ms. Strickland could have done in this budget to bring us that would have given us what looks on paper to be a balanced budget. We could have still had our zeros, and it wouldn't have included this line that gives a lot of us heartache of the fund balance contribution. Ms. Kessler and I definitely feel strongly about that, because we've been hearing about this since Mr. Herb Westbrook was telling us when he was 2001 budgets that we did with him. Don't ever touch the fund balance. And so I also truly have heartburn when I see the fund balance on there. But I also took that heartburn and I listened to what Ms. Strickland was telling us when she's presenting her budget. I've looked at, thank you, Mr. Bray, for asking the question about what we heard in the financial reports, that we may probably have enough to go ahead and cover that. And maybe we don't ever really dip down into that and the fund balance stays about where it is as it currently sits right now. I kind of like saying, Mr. Taxpayer, of which I'm a business owner too, that I'm coming to you for more money, but I'm also not just throwing it in a bank account if I've budgeted conservatively, because I'd much rather this young lady budget conservatively than not budget conservatively. I don't want her giving me a budget to make this number look good where she budgets 50%. If we want to do that, we can tell Ms. Strickland, go ahead and give us a budget. We'll take down both of Mr. Bray's amendments he's about to make and give us only 50% of the positions funded. And then we are going to potentially be in trouble. I'd rather be at the end of a year having potentially $3 million left over from last year's budget that we can potentially put on a sheet to look at. What can we do with this? Then sit here and go, well, we don't have anything left over from this budget. In fact, we're down about $3 or $4 more million from what we budgeted. So now we're in a really big deficit. So I appreciate Ms. Strickland for budgeting the way you've budgeted, which is a very conservative budget, for doing the things that you've been trained to do and that you know how to do and that you do very, very well. I don't say that lightly, because I, with my concerns about it, came and sat in your office and had a conversation with you about it. And what I found, and I know other board members have sat with you, and what I found is that I trust the lady sitting in that seat, and I trust the young lady sitting in this seat, and I trust a lot of people in this room. And I trust that they've given us what they need. And I look at what surrounding districts are doing and how everybody's budgets are going up, and I think, well, what messages that we send if we are not trying to do the best that we can do? I'm personally proud of the salary schedule that was so hotly debated at the last meeting, that we are now wanting to definitely make a motion that we're going to keep the teacher salary schedule as proposed. I'm glad it seems everybody's in agreement with that right now. But that is the big area of where you get money. And so I'm committed, as I know everyone here is, to the students of Lexington2 first and foremost. And in order to be committed to them, I have to be committed to the people standing in front of them in the classroom. And not only that, the people standing in front of them at their faculty meetings, which is their administrators. And not only them, but the people sitting in this room who stand before them at their administrator meetings. It's taken everybody to get back to that child, to give them the best chance, which is what we're trying to do, give every kid the best chance. And so I don't want to take this budget on June 20th, tear it up and throw it out the window, because if this motion passes and the next motion passes, then you've got an unbalanced budget. And I personally can't vote for an unbalanced budget. So I respectfully will vote no to both amendments. I'm pleased again to hear that what I see on this line, Ms. Strickland, where you put fund balance contribution, is actually transparency and honesty. I got to get to zero somehow. I'm going to budget like I know it is, and hey, this might be where I have to go. On the other hand, I feel confident that based on what we've seen in the past, that these things will happen. Well, she can't guarantee that. But she can only budget to how she knows, and I'd much rather her over budget expenditures and under budget revenue, so that at the end of the day, like we're doing right now, we can sit here and say, we hate to look at that line right there, but we're going to be okay because we budgeted well last year. So I respectfully do not want to vote for either amendment, as it will unbalance what we have been brought to by the people we are paying a lot of good money to do, which is bring us a balanced budget.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Any further?
Yes, ma'am. How much did we have left over last year?
3.3.
Thank you. That means 2 years in a row, we've been $3 million over. Is there any way to tighten that up? There's not anyone that's going to dispute what Beth has beautifully spoken and said. There's no one that distrusts you or thinks you're doing anything untrustworthy. Don't walk away with that message, because that's not the message. The message is we just need to button it up a little tighter. So we're 3.3 over last year. We were 3 over this year or more. We don't know yet how much this year.
I think it was more than 3.3 last year.
If you look at the fund balance, it increased from, I don't have it up now, but it went from, I'll find it. It went from 16.61 million to 20.71, so that's 3 point, that's 3.1.
That was because we have to split it between capital projects and general fund.
But you're only worried about the general fund balance.
I'm just worried about the general fund.
Right.
And the increase last year, at the end of the last school year, was the unexpected growth in revenue from the counties that we
Yes.
received. It grew by about 5%. So that
Well,
was
to
unexpected.
that point, if I may, real quick, next year's a reassessment. So when we go and take this extra millage that we don't, I believe, and to Ms. Kessler's point, don't let the narrative be that we don't respect you or trust you. I believe that you can cut 1.4% out of this. We can leave that 8 mills on the table next year when we get a big reassessment. Our county's gonna hit a large reassessment, and then we can check it again. I think 1.4% is peas when, to Ms. Kessler's point, 3.1 million increase to the fund balance from 21 to 22. Let's call it 3.1 million this year. I can go back while we're talking and look at the prior year, but I'm pretty sure it was 2.7. I mean, we are typically right at the 2 to 3 million. You know, we call it a balanced budget, but really we're just taking that balanced budget and moving it to the fund balance.
Well, I'm still stuck on the 3.2 million. I'm looking in the audit report from June 30th of 2023, and we added roughly $4.5 million to the general fund balance.
From what year?
June 30th of 2023.
Last year.
So how does this number make sense then? Because if you took 4.1 to 16, that would put you at 20.
That's 2022.
That's the ending balance for fiscal year 22, right? At the 16.61? That's June 30th, 2022, so the end of the 21-22 budget. The end of the 22-23 budget.
That is a typo, I'm sorry. It should be 21,424,744.
Well, that gives us even more, that puts us above the 16% right there. Even if we do 13.67%. Our mills, that solves the problem.
Madam Chair, I'll call the question if anybody else has any other comments.
Okay.
I'll call the question for the vote on the amendment.
All right. We have an amendment with a second on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay. Motion fails. Then we have a motion on the floor for the final reading of the 24-25 general fund budget with a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay. All in favor of the final reading of the 24-25 general fund budget, signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye? Aye. That's 4 in favor. Opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
Nay. 1, 2, 3, and 3. The second and the final reading of the 24-25 general fund budget has passed, and we will now move on to new business.
Kudos, teachers.
Okay. All right. Yes, yes.
Again, a minute ago, and what I was saying was part of the debate, but, as I've said, as I've said on a couple of occasions in the past few months, any goal that I know Ms. Kessler and I share is that we certainly leave this district in, at least as good or better place than we found it. I'm proud to move forward and have voted for this budget. And I just want to publicly state for everyone in the room and people watching at home that, as I well know, Ms. Kessler, and I'm not at all criticizing Ms. Rucker, Ms. Kessler, and Mr. Bray, I know that their concerns are heartfelt as well. But I just do want you to know that I do, and you've heard Ms. Kessler say a minute ago, that's not about trust. She trusts you. But Ms. Strickland, I do trust you in the direction that you're taking us. I know you've worked hard on this budget, and I know it's probably taken you to tears. I wouldn't doubt that. And Dr. Hefner, this is technically, I think, your first official? Second budget with Ms. Strickland. So first with Ms. Strickland is what I'm saying. Yeah, because last year we had a lot going on.
Yeah.
So this is your first kind of full, really deep dive. And honestly, I think what you're hearing, and please give yourself some grace, because I know you've had to defend a lot, but also give my fellow board members here some grace, because truly, and they would all, I'm sure, agree with me, is you have given us a lot more information in this budget than we've gotten in a number of years. And so that honestly created a lot more questions, but that's not a bad thing. I'm glad that these other board members and as well as us have all asked the questions. I'm glad we've come to you. I'm glad we've pushed to say, give us a penny here, give us a penny there. That is us being good stewards. And just because we pass it on a 4-3, I don't want you to see that as any kind of indictment of you or your planning or your budget or you, Dr. Hefner. I want you to see it as the result of good and healthy and vigorous debate and discussion, because we all bring different skills to this table, and the next board will bring a different set of skills to this table. But there is one thing that I would say publicly, despite all the debate and all the chitter chatter, which I don't get into on Facebook, as y'all know, despite everything being said, that I truly believe that the other 6 people, from Mr. Bray on down the table to Mr. Kessler, Ms. Kessler, all feel just as I do, that we absolutely love this district, that we want it to be successful, and that we are just sometimes very passionate in our statements because we desire that so much, because the love that all of us have from this district, for most of us all of us comes from either a lifetime of living here or a lifetime of dedicating your work career here. That's where you're seeing the passion. It's not ever directed at any of you individually, though you may feel that at sometimes, and I'm guilty of doing the passion as well, as we all know. And, just like, Mr. Bray and I always walk out of here as friends, even though we sometimes disagree, we're also feeling great about all of you. And I hope I speak on behalf, I know I speak on behalf of all 7 board members. And I just want you to hear that, and I want to thank you, and just let this board know that I'm proud to have had this budget debate with you, and I value the things that you have brought to the table and said. And I do know that some of the things you said are going to be what she's thinking about when she's budgeting for next year. So even, if you didn't win your point or your motion or whatever, I do think it's going to be, something that's, hey, let's look at this a little closer. Let's look at some of these things. I think what you brought to the table is valuable, and I'm proud to have passed this budget with all 6 of you. Count this up.
I'm proud to say I won't be here next year. Y'all have a daggone good time. Sky Baby, I love you. Superstar, baby, superstar.
And I just want to thank Ms. Branham
For
that and for the work on the budget. Thank you for getting our teachers starting out at $50,000, and thank you for the entire salary schedule and your work on that. And I know a lot of the teachers have left, but just want to thank everybody for coming out and just being here tonight. Thank you.
So,
Madam Chair, I would like to put in a couple 2 cents, but I am excited with where we're headed, and I really look forward to our September workshop where we can actually dig into this budget and find out what we got coming up, where we can work on some cuts, because there's a lot of things we can work on in cuts. But at this crash date, it was hard to sitting here, but I can see where we can start working early next year where we won't have this. I mean, I know looking back at the millage, we've raised the millage 3 times since 2013. That's not much at all. I sat here and voted for me to spend more money next year. My taxes are going up greatly. But if it's for the best of the district, and we can sit here during our workshops before our next one and get all this worked out, we wouldn't sit here for an hour and 15 minutes hashing back and forth trying to find hastily things. So I thank you for your work, and hopefully we can dig in come September 9th or so and start looking at some of these lines and where we can save our taxpayers and where we can make this district a better district. So I thank y'all for what y'all done so far.
So, can I say something real quick?
all right, I'm going to put you on a time limit here, but yes, you can.
Dr. Hafner, do you want me to go into the state of affairs with the state budget and what's going on with that?
No.
Y'all don't want, okay.
You've met the time limit.
Thank you for trying, Ms. Strickland. I appreciate that. And I want to thank Ms. Kessler, Ms. Branham, Mr. Key, Ms. Castles, Ms. Rucker, and Mr. Bray for this heated discussion that I know was done with love for Lexington2. And I think at the end of the day, we're all on the same page. It's been difficult. I think this budget has been difficult for all 7 of us, but I do feel like that we have voted the right way tonight. And I want to thank the cabinet and Dr. Heffner for all of y'all's hard work, especially Ms. Strickland, for everything that we've done. But I think the most important thing that the 7 of us have done together, and we all have agreed on that tonight, is we have done what is right for our teachers, which means that is what's right for our students. And that is the most important thing. And that is what I am very proud to be chairman of this board tonight, that the 7 of us agreed on that. And with that being said, the budget has passed, and we're going to move on to new business. And the first one is consideration to authorize the administration to apply for Title I, Title III, and neglected and delinquent funds. And I'll turn that over to Dr. Heffner.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. I'd like to invite Hope Verona to the podium. She has a very brief presentation about this information for you. As you know, we typically pass it in May, but we were delayed in receiving the information, so she's going to speak to that tonight.
So good evening, Madam Chair, Dr.
Welcome.
Heffner, members of the board. Tonight, I come before you to request authorization from the board for Dr. Heffner to apply for Title I, Parts A and D, and Title III funding. To give you just a little background, Title I preliminary fiscal year 2025 allocation has come in at $2,938,490.61. That does indicate a 0.4% decrease from last year. The preliminary fiscal year 2025 allocation. Could you hear me okay?
Here,
Up
now
until
we
then?
can.
I didn't even realize it wasn't on. Super, thank you. The preliminary fiscal year 2025 allocation of $83,140.32 for Title I Part D, that's the neglected and delinquent funds, which is provided to our Three Rivers Residential Treatment Facility. That represents a 15.7% decrease from last year. Those decreases, just to give you some background, that is across the board, all of the districts in South Carolina. We're all going through some decreases with our federal funding. We have not received a preliminary fiscal year 2025 allocation for Title III, Part A, for our multilingual learners as of today at this point. But Ms. Quickle did tell me that she has been told that a preliminary allocation should arrive in August 2024, so we wait on that.
Okay, all right. This time I'll entertain a motion to apply for Title I, Title III, and neglected and delinquent funds as presented.
Madam Chair, I move to authorize the administration to apply for Title I, Title III, and N&D funds.
I have a motion by Mr. Bray, a second by Ms. Rucker. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, next, thank you, Hope. Next, we will go on to item B, which is consideration of resolution to issue annual 8% debt. Dr.
Yes,
Hafner?
As you know, this is a yearly occurrence. I'm going to pass it over to Mrs. Strickland.
So I have the resolution for the annual issuing of the debt, and it's not to exceed $15 million, and that is to make the payments of the installment purchase revenue bond, is to provide for our capital projects improvement fund and any bond issuance cost.
All right, thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve issuing the annual 8% debt as a resolution as recommended by administration.
Second.
Have a motion by Ms. Branham, a second by Mr. Bray. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, Ms. Strange. All right, next we'll move on to item C. It's consideration of textbook adoptions.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair, you have the information about the textbook adoptions in your packet. You've had that information for review. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to ask Dr. Berggraf to step to the podium, but if not, we'll look for a motion.
All right, I'll entertain a motion for the textbook adoptions.
I make a motion that we accept administration's recommendation regarding the textbook. The 9 books as recommended by administration for textbook adoption.
All right, I have a motion. I have a second by Mr. Bray. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Quick question, and
Yes,
I promise
ma'am.
I do not want to belabor this meeting, but I do have a question. And I hate to give you a question, so if you need to get back to me, that's fine. You know, I don't hate to give you a question. I hate to prompt a question to you at a meeting that I should have sent you ahead of time to be ready for. But just a question, I know we have our iPads and stuff, and, you know, heavy textbooks and stuff are becoming a thing of the past. How many, like, actual textbooks are kids having to carry around right now? I don't want to.
So it varies by school. When we adopt a textbook, usually there's 3 ways that schools can order them. They can order a print-only student edition. They can order a bundle, which includes a print edition and a digital license, or they can order a digital license only. We leave that up to individual schools to talk with their teachers and see. Some teachers feel strongly students need a print edition. Some as a department, they only want digital. We leave that autonomy to the schools. So I could estimate a total for you, but it's up to their discretion as to how they want to, or what format they want those textbooks to come in.
And I don't need you to go to that additional work. You're busy enough. I just kind of, that prompted my thought is, are we getting these digitally or hard copies? Thank you, that's all I needed.
Okay.
And sometimes I will say they'll order a class set to have one class set hard copy, but the students all have digital access.
Any other questions? Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Tugger.
All right, now we're going to move to item D, and it's consideration of overnight student travel request from Airport High School Athletics football to attend T.L. Hanna Defensive Camp at T.L. Hanna High School, Anderson, South Carolina, from July 17th through the 18th, and I'll just entertain a motion to approve that as presented.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the overnight airport high school football travel as presented.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Bray, a second by Mr. Key. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next, we're going to move on to announcements. July 4th is Independence Day holiday. July 30th, our teachers return. August 1st is our back-to-school board meeting at the District Education Center at 6 o'clock. August 7th is our first day of school. August 15th is the next regular monthly meeting of the Board of Trustees at the District Education Center at 6 p.m. I want to wish everyone here a happy summer. Please enjoy it. I want to thank our lawyers that are here with us tonight, Kathy Mahoney, Will Edwards, Kelly Jumper, for staying with us during our discussion tonight and the passing of our budget. We appreciate y'all being here as always. So we'll look forward to seeing everybody back at our August 1st back-to-school meeting. And with that being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session.
I make a motion that the Board of Trustees enter closed session for legal advice regarding board policy KEC and state legislation in consideration of personnel appointments and resignations.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Castles, a second by Ms. Rucker. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimously. We are now in executive session. Y'all only wish. I'm just going to tap it.
I make a motion that the meeting be reconvened in open session and the appropriate affidavit be executed.
I have a motion by Ms. Castles, a second by Ms. Rucker, and all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are now in open session. I'll entertain motions for action that was discussed in executive session.
I make a motion to approve the administration's recommendations for personnel appointments, reappointments, and resignations.
I have a motion by Ms. Castles, a second by Mr. Bray. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. And have it noted that Ms. Branham has recused, and then it was 6 affirmative. All right, I'll entertain another thing.
Okay. I've been doing better tonight. Okay. I make a motion to accept administration's recommendation for candidate number 1 for the principal at Fulmer Middle School, candidate number 2 for the director of CTE at the Innovation Center, candidate 3 as the director at Newbridge Academy, candidate number 4 as the assistant principal at Wood Elementary.
I have a motion by Ms. Castles, a second by Ms. Kessler. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. And I will now entertain a motion for adjourn by Ms. Branham, and do I have a second? Second by Ms. Rucker, and all in favor say aye. We are now adjourned.